Welcome to the Market Domain podcast. This time again out of Chicago. We have a great guest tonight, Leo Schwartz. He is a musical composer. He is a real estate instructor and real estate author. Welcome to the show, Leo.
Thank you, Mike. Good to meet you. Good to see you again.
Good to see you again.
Know you for a long time.
We met. I wouldn't say a long time ago, but at this time, I think it was January of 2019.
Something around in there.
Yeah, something like that. So you were the real estate instructor from NAR, the National Association of
No, Chicago Association of
Chicago Association. That's right, but it's a NAR building, right?
Right.
So
it's in the NAR building, yeah.
The NAR
National Association of Realtor building.
It was quite a fun time. I have to say that I learned a lot. First time, by the way.
Yeah.
So now, three and a half, 4 years later, almost. You were so nice in coming on the show and talking with us about marketing and real estate and musicals and whatnot.
Sure.
Tell me a little bit about the last 3 years. What have you had going? I know back then when we met, you were just finishing up Till, what is a musical?
A musical about Emmett and Mamie Till,
Mhm.
named Till the Musical.
Right. And then you were about to go market that and get it produced for Broadway and
Well, what happened was we submitted it to the New York Musical Theater Festival and it placed. And so I had to raise the budget to have it produced at the New York Musical Theater Festival. And we had it produced. And it played 4 or 5 performances. It won 11 awards. The New York Times gave it a rave. Other reviewers gave it raves. One of them said it was a national treasure, which is one of my favorite.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, and it was a real intense experience, particularly the opening performance, because after the last beat of music, the entire audience leapt to their feet. And I'd never experienced anything like that before.
They did what?
They leapt to their feet. They jumped
really?
up for a standing ovation. It was instantaneous. Wow. It was really cool.
Wow.
So it's a very powerful show. And then we had it produced again in New Jersey. We were approached by the American Theater Company out of New Jersey, and they wanted to produce do a production of it. So they did that. And then COVID happened.
Right.
Literally 2 days after we closed in New Jersey, everything shut down. And it's been sort of dormant since then. But I've been patiently, I'm not patient, I'm not going to lie, I'm not a patient man at all, but we've been waiting to see what's going to happen next.
Yep.
And constantly trying to keep it out there as much as possible.
Okay.
Well, just in terms of marketing, I mean, I've produced off-Broadway. I produced my musical, The Book of Merman, off-Broadway. It ran for 5.5 months. It's now licensed by Broadway Licensing, which is one of the largest licensing companies in the world. And we're getting ready, I should say it's the 14th, we're getting ready in about 3 days to have it to have it hit their main distribution vehicle. So we're expecting to get more. We've had a few productions of it, but we're expecting to get more productions of it. And the thing with Till, which is challenging, is that Emmett Till was a young black man from Chicago, a young child who was brutally murdered in the South, in Mississippi in the 50s. And it is very much a cultural icon to the black community. And it's challenging for some people that 2 white men have written this musical about this black icon. And we've had trouble with producers wanting to do it because they don't want to.
They don't want to touch it.
They don't want to touch it.
Okay.
But I'm undeterred. I just did a social media campaign on Facebook targeting London, New York, Los Angeles, and Australia. Put a 1.5-minute video on.
From the show? Or?
From the show, yeah, a recording of part of the recording of the last song of the show.
Okay.
And then basically what would amount to excerpts from the better reviews, and well, they were all good reviews, but excerpts from the reviews, and just saying anybody having an interest in producing this, anybody who believes passionately about theater, please contact us. No mention of the authors, none of that, because we want to step back from this. And one of the things that we know that we want with this show is we need and want an all-black production staff.
Yeah.
because of the experience and the weight that they will bring to this. I mean, we've already had it's the and it's interesting how this works because um, when we produced it in, I'm just going to talk about this if this is okay with
Yeah,
you.
that's fine.
When we produced this in New York, it was originally written for 6 black actors and 3 white actors.
Hmm.
And of course, the white actors are the bad guys. And what happened was, uh, with 9 equity actors, the budget was undoable. It was not necessary. It wasn't possible for me to raise that money. So I decided one day, and where I do some of my best thinking in the shower, I decided one day that I would just double cast it, and we would do it with 6 black actors. And my thought was, well, this is the director's problem. It's not mine. They're going to have to figure out how to identify these black actors as white characters. So we went down to six black actors, and it was very powerful this way. And this was the way it was also produced in New Jersey. Um, but since then, I had my management team run me a budget for off Broadway, and this was about a year and a half ago. It was about 900,000. I expected around about $1 million now, and $1 million isn't a lot of money to raise, but it's enough to raise. I tapped myself out with Book of Merman, all my local investors, so I'm kind of in shopping around for new investors, and I have a couple of people that I've got my eye on, but these things are not necessarily done in one fell swoop. They're like the trickle of money comes in. And sometimes you can revisit some of the investors, and sometimes you have to find new investors and new people. And the brilliant thing about producing theater is that you get a number of, like I'll assign you, for instance. I'll say, if you feel you could raise $100,000, I'll put your name above the title on all the production material and the marquee, and you get a team doing this. And this is why when you see the Tony Awards and anything like that, and you see the producers come up on stage, there are so many people whose hands have been in that. It's astounding. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. But one of the things that the social media campaign has done, is we've gotten well over, and it's not a large amount. Granted, it's well over 100,000 views, but we have picked up four four leads out of all this, and one of them is really quite interested in it. He's produced theater in the past in New York and London. He's produced movies, and he wants to get back into the theater. So
Okay.
we're pursuing that. I mean, and it's the theater. It's just one of those things that you just keep pushing on, and only 15% of Broadway shows make their money back.
Right.
So basically, what I'm coming to you and is saying that, hey, if you invest $100,000, I'll show you a really good time. We'll have fun, and don't expect much money back.
Right. I mean,
Right?
okay, I mean, this is like, it's all potential, right? It's
It's
like
all potential.
it's like with the VCs, right? They know that they lose money 9 out of 10
Yeah.
times, but the one time they make so much money that it's worth to them. So
Yeah. And it's something you get a composer like Sondheim, Stephen Sondheim, who recently died this past year. His shows are some of the best shows around. He never made money on Broadway. His shows didn't make money on Broadway. They made money subsequently in the licensing. When they did it, they do it in Peoria, or they do it in Dubuque.
okay,
They do these productions elsewhere. That's where those shows begin to make money.
okay. Well, they make money at the end, right?
They make money at the end, exactly.
So, I mean, that's so when you say like social media campaigns, like elaborate a little bit on that, because that's interesting for our audience here. You know, we're highly focused on social media marketing and stuff like that, especially when it comes to like, raising money and that kind of stuff. You know, that's interesting for a lot of like our clients, our viewers.
I'm, you know, I'm uh, naive when it comes to social media. I'm not the most sophisticated user of it. I specifically went to Facebook because I know that's where my market is.
Okay.
The person I talked to about putting it on Facebook and getting it done said, "You want to do Instagram?" I said, I can't use Instagram. It doesn't work for me. It's a visual medium. We're talking about something oral, something that doesn't work that way. And I need to have a minute and a half of their attention
Right.
in order to grab them. So it is simply a stagnant, not stagnant, but they're simply cells over which the hook is given, and then we put in the quotes from the reviews, and over that we dubbed part of the end of the show, the audio track of the show,
Okay.
and it makes a very powerful impression just because of the nature of the show. And it's a very stark sounding show, um, and when it isn't rich and glorious with gospel music, but it's the, and I specifically went to London and New York and Australia and LA because I figured that's where the existing producers are going to be. What would make me really happy is a production on the West End, because I think I could I if I the thing about this show, this particular show, is that once it's successful, there will be the questions will stop.
Right.
You know, the doubt will stop. And I think it's going to be easier for the show just because of recent activity with the Emmett Till opera that's gotten slammed for the author. I know we're being recorded. I probably shouldn't say this, but the author did something very ham-handed and stupid in writing the show about this subject. Uh, but we worked with the Emmett Till expert, the guy who is the most authoritative expert on the subject matter, and met with him, and he's sort of our historical consult on it. Um, but in the West End, I don't think we'll get the blowback that we would in the United States. And once it's established in the West End, I think it'd be easier for us to move it to the United States.
Okay.
I think it's going to be easier for us to do it off Broadway. And as our director, a gentleman named Caesar Williams says, he says, Leo, you can't worry about what people think, because is a black gentleman. He directed it in New Jersey, and he told the story. The show shut down so quickly because of COVID after New Jersey. We never had a chance to sit down with our production team and compare notes of how everything went. So we finally did this about a month ago with Caesar. We finally pulled him in and said, "Hey, you want to be associated with the show going forward?" He said, "Absolutely." He says it's a work of genius. I said, "Well, thank you. That you can tell me that more." And uh, he said that the people he would run into on the street who heard he had done the show were angry with him for doing it. The people who ran into the street who had seen the show absolutely loved it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, you have to actually see it. That
You have to
you know,
experience it.
it takes everything in consideration.
And I understand the mindset that's going on, because you think musical theater, or people think musical theater, and they think something light and frothy and lots of singing and dancing. And this is a very heavy subject.
Mm.
This is a very heavy subject. And it's like, how do I make it work? Because I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing as a dramaturg, and I know I'm doing as a writer and a composer. I know how to pull the emotions out of you, the
Right.
audience. That's one of my great skills. So the I just won't stop, and we'll see what this producer out in LA will do with the show. We'll see if he'll pick it up. Right now, he has the script, he has the demo.
All right. Well, good luck.
Listening to. Well,
Good luck
thank you
to
very
that.
much.
So,
And I have a bunch of other stuff in the fire too that we're working on. So it's just never ending.
right. I mean, like you're a busy man. Like you have so much on your plate all the time. Between the musical and the real estate. Like we met through real estate, and it's
Right.
also like even beyond just being the instructor for Chicago Association for Realtors for us to get the Illinois license, right? Even beyond that, you were like always a great resource to like understand the market, understand how to like prospect and all that,
Yeah. Well,
especially for me back then, because I came to town and I knew no one here, right? So and that actually did a lot to me. Is like just like little tips and tricks. That was great. And um going out and prospecting, formal marketing, networking, right?
yes.
So on the other hand, like we are living in a very different world now, especially after 2020 happened, with all this like extra digitalization, going on, where now like a lot of focus of a lot of people, is on TikTok, let's say, or
Mhm.
YouTube Shorts or stuff like that, where they spend tons of time there. And you know we are like approaching real estate now a little bit different, even though I'm not an active realtor anymore, disclose, right? So but like the realtors that work with us, they need to understand that we have different tools now available, besides the regular network, and especially for someone coming new to a new area, right? A new market like Chicago, great city. It's there's a lot of people here, and sometimes you're still feeling lonely, to be honest.
Mhm.
Because it's kind of hard. Everyone is busy, to get into a circle, right? But then you have all those tools, you know, for a let's say for a new realtor, right, in a market like Chicago, knowing no one in town except maybe their family, what would you in 2022 suggest what to do in order to get the first clients?
Well, I do this all the time because that's who my class is, and I don't like the idea of teaching somebody how to get a real estate license and then leaving them go on their own. The dropout rate in the industry is 90% for the first 2 years. 90% of realtors don't make it in the first 2 years.
It's like
I,
80% the first year and then 90% in the
yeah,
first two.
basically
Yeah.
80%, 90% in there,
Okay.
and I mean that's a horrible job to send into, um, there was a white paper done by one of the God, I forget the name of the publication, but a white paper done by one of the major real estate publishers that stated that we as an industry, as a real estate industry, are failing in onboarding. And the reason we fail in onboarding is because managing brokers who are responsible for training people or having them trained, either way, um, are refusing to invest the time and energy and money in training them properly because they're bound to fail. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And because they're bound to fail, they don't invest the time and money.
Right.
So it's reciprocal. So I'm 64 years old, and I've been selling things since I've been in my 20s. Um, the fundamentals of sales and marketing have not changed over the years. Some of the nuances have, but it's still getting your product out in front of people and convincing them that it's the right thing to do. And how do you do that? And how do you get people in? Um, I learned my I learned the most of my sales start off was with a crazy cokehead in Houston, Texas. He was a guy I worked with that I sold.
Oh, they're great salesmen.
Right? I mean,
They have a great product too.
and he talked very fast. But the thing about it is that it's still the same. I mean, I suggest some very basic things to my students, and one of them is being don't be afraid to talk with people.
Right.
And 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 one of the things I see on their faces all the time is that I don't think I can do this. Well, you may not be able to do it my way. You may not have my sales skills, but I'm not asking you to do it my way. I'm asking you to do it your way. I'm just asking you to do it.
Yep.
And the people I mentor, I say there are three results in what you're going to do. It's going to work, it's not going to work, or you're not going to work it. And there's nothing I can do about you're not going to work it. If you're not going to try, I can't help you. But if you try and fail, I can help you. Okay?
Right.
Because you have to learn how to fail before you can learn how to succeed.
I mean, it's trial and error, kind of. It's like,
It really
especially if
is.
you are not like a lot of people, right? Like we have that in our very own organization where I offer everyone commission if even those guys here, they are content creators, right? Producers and whatever. If they bring us a client, they get a commission, right? But the first thing what I hear in interviews already is, "Are you gonna make me sell?" Like
Yeah.
I was like, "No, I won't. It's an option. I'm not gonna force you to, but I think everyone should learn to sell because if you want to convince me of an idea, that's selling too, right?"
Sure.
So now we have a flat hierarchy. Like everyone is the same. Everyone can say anything they want, right? But if you want to convince me of something, I'm pretty stubborn, right? It's like you better be a good salesperson, even if your product is not something that I have to pay money for.
Yeah.
It's like an idea that I have to buy, right? And a lot of people don't get that, and a lot of people are just like you put them on the spot. Now you sell. Oh my god, I can't. I'm not a good salesman. I'm not a car salesman. That kind of like what they see, like everything that is kind of like the stereotypes of salesmen, right?
Yeah.
It's like it has bad reputation, bad taste, right? But a good salesman isn't like that.
No.
The good salesman is actually helping their clients.
You're facilitating dreams. You're basically helping them find solutions to what
Right.
they need in their life.
Exactly.
And most of the people that come to me, they're all looking for a 180-degree change in their life. I mean, none of them really are coming in to work sales. They're just coming in because they think they can make money in real estate. And things that have to happen is they have to learn how to get out of themselves and not be afraid to talk with people.
Right.
Like, I recently made a tremendous connection with a Lyft driver. Why? Because I asked him about himself, you know. And as I tell my students, what's the most common question that a stranger is going to ask you? How are you today?
Hmm.
Then you should take the opportunity when they ask you, how are you today? And tell them how you're doing today.
Right.
You know, explain to them what you're doing in real
Yeah.
estate. Because one of the great things about real estate is it's like the weather. Everybody likes to talk about it.
Right.
And the most common question you're going to get once they find you out in real estate is, how's the market doing? That's all statistical information.
Right.
You don't have to have any deals to talk about what the average price per a single family home is, what the list to sell ratio is, what the average number of market times are, what the interest rates are. You don't need to have sales under your belt to do that. You can sound knowledgeable about real estate without having done a lot of deals,
Mm.
but you just have to throw yourself out there to begin with. I had one of my mentees come over the other day because and I'm steering a couple of them towards this, but the divorce market is huge. I mean, there's so many divorces that are done on an annual basis, and the percentage of divorce cases which require a real estate agent to sell the home is really high. But in order to do that, you have to work with an attorney, and in order to get an attorney, you have to reach an attorney to
Right.
be on their list.
Hmm.
And you need to be. And I talked to an attorney. I said, "What do you look for on a real estate agent?" And basically availability. Okay, so here's the deal. The National Association of Real Statistics say that 85% of all sellers and 75% of all buyers work with the first real estate agent they talk to, which tells me that I need to be in touch with the people on a regular basis.
Right.
And it's the same thing with the attorney. The attorney is very point blank. She has about 10 different real estate agents that she can pull from,
Right.
but she's going to get the squeaky wheel, the one who's there all the time.
Yeah.
So I told Julian, I said, I want you to come over. We're going to do telemarketing, and we're going to call up some attorneys and get you in the door. And I wrote a script for him, and I sat him down. And we did everything. And he started calling. We started talking through the calls and everything, and he made some progress. And after an hour, I said, I want to tell you something, and it's a secret. Don't you tell anybody this. And he said, what is it? He goes, I've never done this before. I've never telemarketed attorneys before. I just know what the fundamentals are and know how to do it. We're going to do the same thing with estate attorneys. You know, everybody I come in, it's like you just sell. It's the basics of sales. You know,
Right.
and
But it's like not even like you don't sell you know,
you don't sell a house.
right.
I'm not going to.
You sell yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not going to tell you that a house is going to take 20 years off of you or make you look 30 pounds slimmer. That's not sales in real estate. The
Right.
sales in real estate is getting me to convince you that I'm trustworthy with your largest asset or liability, however you look at it.
Right.
Okay. So it's like the challenge is to just get over yourself and talk with people. I think one of my better successes has been a guy who took me up on my challenge to be the dog realtor.
Hmm.
You know, I mean,
Well, I remember you saying that. Like,
yeah,
yeah.
I finally had
Yeah.
somebody do it though, Mike.
Okay.
I finally had somebody do it.
Did it work?
It worked.
Okay.
He sent me an email one day and he says, you tell those students to listen to what you're telling them because it works. He lives in a fairly dense area, dense population, and he goes for a walk every evening at 6 o'clock. And of course, what's happening at 6 o'clock? People are walking their dogs.
From work, and the dog has to go out.
And the best introduction to a dog person is, what a cute dog.
Right.
What's its name? All right. Do you know that the main reason most millennials buy a home is to have a home for their dog? That's the main reason. So he said that by doing this for a week, he got 2 leads, and off of each of those leads, he got 6 referrals. Because in a city as dense as Chicago, it's very difficult to find a place to live with your dog.
I know. I remember.
Right?
Yeah.
Condos are different. Condos are restrictive. Apartments are restrictive. So, and there's a dog park up by me that finally a realtor has, whatever it means to the dog park, is sponsoring part of it, and he has a big old banner up there with his
Right.
picture on it and everything, saying I'm.
But that all comes kind of back to like what we preach all the time, niche down.
Yeah, you got to find out what it is,
Right. It's like, well, I mean,
or create it.
I didn't go for dogs back then. I went for my niche, and that was me being a German. When
Yeah,
I had
sure,
the
exactly.
license. The only people that I tried to like get to like buy homes for basically were Germans. Germans in Chicago. I went, like, I was part of a Facebook group already. I helped the family. They never had to live in a rental apartment here in the United States. They moved from their house in Germany in their house here. So it is like niche down. That's, you're very knowledgeable in one thing. You're going to be a greater benefit for someone that than, let's say, like a so-called jack of all trades, right?
Right.
So it's very powerful to niche down. You said that all the time. It's like, just be the dog realtor.
Do whatever. I
Remember
mean,
that.
find something. I mean, talk to people in the grocery store, talk to people in the elevator, I mean, just talk with people. Find something that is, I mean, one of the things that I'm trying to get folks into doing now is not only estate attorneys, but is quit giving away their commission checks. I don't know if I was doing this when you were in the class either, but so like, I'll give you $1,000 of my commission to work with me. And let's learn how to, I mean, why are you giving away your commission, first
Really?
of all? You should learn how to monetize it.
Right.
So here's how you monetize it. You're going to take $500 or $1,000. I'm going to go to the client and say, here's what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to throw you a housewarming party. I'm going to pay for the staff to come clean it up. And I've paid for staff to come clean up for a party. It's not that expensive. I'm going to pay for the food. I'll pay for half the liquor because I've seen how you drink. And then you're gonna give me the email addresses to send out to all the invitations. And I'm going to come to the party and meet all these people. It's a great way to get your business started.
That's
But you have to learn how to monetize stuff.
right.
Rather than just throwing it away. The Lyft drivers and the Uber drivers in the class, I'm trying to convince, and this is where you get really into it'll work, it won't work, or you won't work it. The clipboard is a tool of power in the United States. If you have a clipboard, you can tell people where to walk out on the street. I'm telling my Lyft and Uber drivers to take a one sheet and put it on the back seat of the car and just spread it out. Make it so that when the person gets into the car, they have to touch it and move it. Okay, make it an inconvenience. So they move the lift sheet. Oh, you're in real estate. Yes, I do real estate as another job.
It's funny you say that. I actually did that. So, I drove Uber for fun back then.
Yes.
So to get out of the house, I had, like, when 2020 happened, I actually had to do it, but that was not so fun anymore. But I did it. I did exactly that. I put the the clipboard on the back seat where the people get in, and they're like, "Hey, what's that?"
Yeah,
And I was
right.
like, "Oh, you're in real estate." It didn't work quite that easy. I have to say that, because most of the time they just handed it over.
Well,
You
see,
know?
this is the thing with the clipboard is the clipboard should be in the passenger seat in the front seat because you talk to them about real estate and then you hand them a clipboard with a pen and say, "Here, I'd like to send you information about real estate." You have places for them to write their email and you never give them a blank sheet. You always give them a sheet that
Yeah,
you've written down,
it
like
was like already
Albert
written.
Einstein's email
I
address.
had that. I listened to that.
Yeah.
Like I said, it worked. Like, I got a few emails and it worked, but like it was not quite as easy as you say. It was like,
Well,
there's a lot of, like, like,
here's the deal. It's like, as I was explaining to the class today, this is not a silver bullet business.
right.
All right, you're gonna and like uh, 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 the guy wrote in Alice Through the Looking Glass, the Red Queen says you have to run twice as fast just to stay in the same spot. Whatever. Who was that who wrote Alice in Wonderland?
I
I
don't know.
can't
I don't know.
remember his name. Do you guys remember? No, nobody remembers. We're all a little illiterate in here. But the uh, it's initially you're doing a lot of work just to get to prime the pumps. After 4 or 5 years, it becomes working on its own. It works on its own.
Right. It's like, it's all like exponential if you
It
keep doing
is.
it. If
It
you
is.
keep doing it, if you're known for something, I mean, that's the whole deal. It's like, was like the social media marketing of today, right? Content marketing. And that's like what you say, niche down, right? I would suggest any realtor today, like, have a YouTube channel. Like, you walk around the
Oh,
neighborhood
absolutely.
and interview everyone that has something to say in your neighborhood. The owner of the bodega, whatever. Like, it's like, talk to the people, talk to if you like live somewhere in the suburbs or even in the city, talk to the school principal.
Yeah.
What is it about? What is your school about? You're gonna be all over the place, like, especially like in more rural areas like we live in now, right? Dayton, Tennessee is like 7,500 people, right? I think we have buildings here where more people live in Chicago. But at the same time, it's like, well, if someone Googles Dayton, Tennessee, they don't find much. But if they Google Dayton, Tennessee, they might have a reason. And the reason might be, well, we actually Googled that because we have a job offer from a company around there. And we wanted to see how safe is this, right?
Yep.
It's like, how are the neighborhoods like set up and whatever. And they find nothing right now. right? They go to Zillow, they go to Trulia and see, Crime Watch, whatever. The ranking of the school, but that says nothing about the actual school, right? It's all like we have to see like how is a realtor today able to actually utilize all the tools that are available to actually make themselves known as the expert in their niche.
Sure.
And if it's a market, if it's like the dog person, if it in a big city, or if it's people go to YouTube and they try to find out how to find an apartment in Chicago with a dog or with four cats or something like that, right? And if they find you as an expert on that matter, you might actually have a shot in getting more clients in.
I've got a student right now who's doing something which is a variation on what I did when I first started out. He's on social media and he's basically going through his list of vocabulary words and posting it on Facebook saying, here's what you need to know about real estate. And then he talks about what an encumbrance is, or he talks about what an easement is.
Mhm.
And it makes him look knowledgeable. And that's exactly what I did. I did it by snail mail in a newsletter,
Right.
but he's doing it on Facebook. I think it's very, very effective. I have another former student of mine who does a great job of going into his geographic area and highlighting different little restaurants, different little stores and things like that, and putting them on Facebook. And it looks like he's so engaged in the community, and his business is profiting because of that.
I bet.
You know,
I bet
because people see that.
that's exactly what I mean.
Yeah,
Like be the
exactly.
expert in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
Someone Googles Lakeview, right? Then what do you get, right? Lakeview real estate, and then you get a few like rental properties and whatever. But if you are like marketing Lakeview real estate and just that as your niche, and you're like Google is the second biggest search engine in the world, right? If you I mean YouTube, like part of Google, it's gonna show you your face and whatever. They rank you so much better than you could with your website, no matter what realty you work with, right? And then coming back to what you just said, snail mail at one point was a very powerful tool for real estate, right?
It was.
But it isn't anymore.
No.
But still, I remember, and that was just 3 years ago. The moment I got my license, I got postcards like crazy from realties that wanted to have me be their like on their
Right.
team, right? And I was like, how much money are you actually spending on that,
Right.
right? Instead of like taking the money, buying a camera, and actually show what your realty is about, right? What kind of culture do you have? What kind of marketing do you offer? Are you going to help them with training? How does the training look and stuff like that? Give the training away for free too. That way, the power of reciprocity is so like really big that realtors might actually consider going with you because of what they know about you.
Yeah.
Instead of like just another postcard, right, and just throwing it away. Yeah, I just don't get it. Like the still, even in 2019, that was the training I got at Keller Williams. From the corporate Keller
Yeah.
Williams. Everyone still does it. Social media marketing nowadays still looks like that. And I have so many realtors in my list from all over the place. New York, Chicago, down in Chattanooga, everywhere. And they all do the same thing. Marketing is not posting every few weeks that you have, just listed something
No.
or just sold something or just closed something. That's like, I don't want to know. That's none of my business. I'm not right. That's like, I don't want to. It's annoying. Like I'm gonna unfollow you for that. If you like post that all the time, and it's like it's not even like adding any value to my life or to anyone else's, right?
It's interesting because there's I'm just thinking about the analogy of a clothing store. When they sell a shirt, they don't put a sign outside saying, "We sold a shirt."
Yeah, really.
Yeah. But there is some benefit to it in regards it shows people that you're engaged and busy, but it is a very passive way to get clients.
Well, also like because everyone does the same thing. What does
Everybody
it
does the
matter?
same thing, right? And repeating other people's mistake is not success.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
one of the things that I try to get my students to do is to get at least 5 sources, lead sources going, and and learn how to mix them up. But and I've had to bring my fangs in a little because I really have a low opinion of sitting open houses and sitting floor time. Because my attitude has always been, if sitting in open house is so valuable, why are you giving it away?
Right.
Why are you having me, the newbie, do the
Right.
open house if it's so valuable to you? And it basically because it's a waste of time and it's babysitting. But there are all sorts of other things that you have to do, but you have to try. You have to
Right.
do these things. And uh, I just, my first criteria is how passive, how active is it? Now, I will technically disagree with you on snail mail to the extent that nothing is more impressive to an individual than a very brief handwritten note. But that's not something you mass market. That's not something you send.
Right. I mean, I get that, and
Yeah,
I'm not saying
but
that's wrong. I have done that. I had this building like right next to where I lived, like right on Lakeshore Drive. It was this like curved building. I think it's 1150 or what. So that one, I had a few showings in there. I knew people in there. I knew the doorman and all that kind of stuff. Like I always like coming back to like what you told me back then. It's like handwritten notes, and it's like, hey, you know what? We just sold something in their house. If you want, handwritten
yes,
to 15 apartments, right? Like people that owned their apartments longer than right?
right.
Whereas like I was already, we could look it up at realtors, like how much, that was still on it and stuff like that, at least guesstimates, right? And I did that too, to like basically like a little farmhouse, right? Where you like nurture those like that. I'm not talking about,
Yeah.
right? But I
It,
go there to the doorman and it's like, hey, can you put this in all those like units?
and but I mean, and the things that you're talking about are things like the Cub schedule or the Sox schedule or all the festivals in the town. It's like I don't need those things. That doesn't tell me how good you are as a real estate agent. That doesn't tell me what you're doing, what your knowledge is. All right. It's just something that I have to throw away in the garbage, which is what I do with it.
Right. And that's like a waste for everyone.
But here's the interesting thing, as I point out to my students, the state law requires you to always advertise, always to use your brokerage in
Yes.
anything,
Uh-huh.
the name of the brokerage.
Right.
So basically, what you're doing by doing your mailings is promoting your company
Right.
rather than you,
Yeah.
right? So, and I have an issue with that because you're almost always paying for all the marketing and postage, printing,
99% of the
yeah,
time, yes.
printing and
Or you're like, you don't directly pay for it, but then, you pay for it through your desk fee or whatever.
yeah, right.
So,
So it's not one of the best things. Um, when I was raising money for Book of Merman, I went back to. I like to get my real estate mentees to. It's something I took from fundraising because I used to do a lot of fundraising for arts organizations. A lead segmentation where you're looking at your lead base and you're deciding which are your hottest leads, which are your cooler leads and medium leads, and which are the dead
yeah.
leads, and then approaching them in that order. With you have a different approach to each one. And as I explained to my students, is that my largest investor in the Book of Merman came from dead leads because I called up somebody who was considered a connector. In the old days, we used to call them gossips. He knew everything about everybody. And I said, can you name me 3 people who could invest $50,000 in my show? And he named me the 3. And I contacted all 3 via social media on Facebook message. And 2 of them said no. And one of them said, let's meet for coffee. And we met for coffee. And within 10 minutes, I had a $50,000 investor. And it's like, you can't write that. That is the most amazing thing in the world.
Right.
And it's the same thing with real estate. You look at, as I tell my students, because of that statistic I quoted you earlier about what percentage of people will respond to the first agent they talk with.
It's
If,
over 80%, to just
yeah,
remind everyone.
but it's stupid because if I've got you as a potential client and you say, well, Leo, I'm glad you got your real estate license, but I'm not ready to buy, but I will be in 6 months. I'll call you then.
Right.
It's like, oh, no, 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 no. I'm going to call you every month until then. And before we do that, I want to know where you want to live and what bedrooms and all that other sort of stuff. So every time I call you, I can give you information about what's going on
Yeah.
because I want to be in that 85% when it's
That's
time.
that's the thing. It's kind of like this. Like you don't really have to be the best, the one with the most output or whatever. You just have to be the
There.
first and the best in the buyer's mind or the
Mhm.
seller's mind, right? You're gonna be predominant in their mind. It's like that person is there all the time. If I want it or not, settle, but there. right? But then the moment I'm ready to like sell or buy, I'm gonna go with that person because it's in my face all the time. It's like, you know, it's gonna be being the first that they cross the path first, right?
Absolutely.
So, and it's like, now imagine like, and that's what I'm telling everyone right now. It's like, okay, um, old timey things mostly don't work anymore. The only thing from the old times that still works is face to face.
Right.
That was never gonna go away. That's never gonna go away. Have a personal relationship with a person is the best thing you can do. If you know, try to help them even outside of real estate. You know, they're gonna they're gonna love you for that. They're gonna remind you when they're ready. So that's so powerful. You know, it's like just help them. What did it cost you, anyways, right?
Right. Right. And they'll remember you when it's time. And it's an easier in because every time you contact them on the phone, you contact them in person, you contact them by text. But every time you contact them, it builds on that relationship.
Right.
All right. And until they're ready. And in the interim, they'll see how you work and they'll get a feel for you as a person, and they'll also have the opportunity to send you referral business,
Right.
which is
Like even in the
which may
meantime,
happen
when they
before they
never
buy.
get ready,
Exactly,
right? It's
exactly.
like, hey, you know what? We're settled. We're gonna die here, no problem.
Yeah.
But you know, like my aunt, my niece, my whatever, right? They're all gonna buy and move away or move in or whatever. You know,
I had in my class the assistant for one of the most successful agents in town, and his name was Alex. And I knew what the answer was to the question before I asked it, but I wanted to show the class what it means to be a real estate agent. And I asked Alex, I said, so Alex, I want you to describe your day for me, working for one of the top 10 real estate agents in the city. And he said, well, for the first 2 hours, nobody can get in touch with my boss. I said, really? Why? Why can't anybody get in touch with him? He said, because he's prospecting for 2 hours a day. That's why he's one of the top agents
right?
in the city,
Exactly.
because he's prospecting. And it is every call, are you ready now? Are you ready to buy? No, it's just talking with people, just being there, just being present.
Yeah.
There is, you may know this. Are you familiar with the book Ninja Selling?
Not sure.
I went to a lunch with a former student of mine, and she's working at a large company here, and they use Ninja Selling, which is a great book. She says, Leo, you should read Ninja Selling. It sounds a lot like you. And so I said, okay, fine. So I went and got it on Amazon and started reading it. And I kind of went, boy, it's nice to know I'm right. It's nice to read somebody else telling other people to do exactly what I've been telling
Right.
you folks to do all along. And one of the things, and I like this acronym. One of the things they talk about is what do you have a conversation about? Because people go, I don't know what to talk about. Well, they've broken it down into an acronym called FORD, which I really like. F stands for family, O stands for occupation, R stands for recreation, and D stands for dream. Those are the four things that you can talk, dreams. Those are the four things you can talk with people on a regular basis, which is really, really great. The other thing that Ninja Selling does, and I think this is really key for salespeople, is it suggests and recommends that you start your day off in meditation. And here's why meditation is so important. Because if you get up and start watching the TV or start looking at the phone or scrolling through Facebook or whatever, you're cheating yourself of a very fertile time in your brain, because you're still in that sleep state, and the doorway to your subconscious is still very much open. And this is where all your inspiration comes from. And in sales, we know this, that we need to have that intuitive thought, because we have to solve problems on the spot. And it's like a muscle. You can sit there for 15-20 minutes in the morning just being, and allow that subconscious to bring up the craziness from the night, and eventually it calms down. I call it my back burner. If I have to come up with an answer to something and I don't have an answer right now, I'll say, I'm going to put it on the back burner. I'm going to throw it back to the subconscious. And damned if the answers don't come up at some point. Lewis Carroll, for instance, is the name of the author of Alice in Wonderland.
Okay.
But when I couldn't remember that, I thought, I'm just going to throw it back on the back burner, and at some point it'll come back up to me,
Right.
and it did. So it's like, it's such a key part of a function of a salesperson to be able to respond intuitively. And I think that's a muscle you can actually work as a
Yeah,
salesperson.
it's trainable, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. But it's like, okay, I haven't read that book, but you know what, you just like the Ford, right? The acronym there. What it boils down to is like what can we talk about, right? Talk about them.
You talk about them, yeah.
Let them talk about themselves.
Yes.
It's like everyone loves to talk about themselves. Everyone does it.
And ask questions, follow up,
Right. It's like active listening is a big
active
thing, you know.
listening.
It's like repeating back to them. It's like you know, there's a lot of like psychological selling books, you know. It's like and there's this tactic that basically like boils it down to that. The tactic is called "Oh, really, really."
Hmm.
It's like it's active listening. It's like every time someone tells us like, "Oh, really? Oh, really? You have done this and that." It's like you repeat it back to them, right? So, and that's like that does something that builds so much rapport, and it's like, you know, clinically proven that it does that. You know,
Yeah.
that, you know, it's really that, like, have them talk about themselves. You know,
Yeah.
they love that. They love that. And if you're like active listening, you know, and like repeating back to them, building rapport, there's like something clicks between you, and then it's making it so much more easy to like you know, have a conversation, because it's not about I want to sell you something or I tell you about myself. They don't want to talk about that. They want to talk about themselves.
Right.
You know, and they want to be heard.
I think some people have a challenge. I've noticed that some people have a challenge with how to listen, because there's a difference between listening and trying to decide what you're going to say next. Because if I'm trying to think of what I'm going to say next when I'm listening to you,
Well, then
I ain't listening to you.
yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
listening to you at all. So I have to learn how to. I have to really learn how to listen. I think, which is really key, like you said.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's, you know, if you repeat it back, you know, that means you listen to it,
Right.
right? You repeat it back in, you know, in your words, and basically like counterpart it, and then it's like you have basically you said nothing, right? You just repeat it back what,
Right.
and then they rant on, you know, and that's like actually it also sinks in better for you as a salesperson, because you actually really listen. You know, that's the point. It's like thinking what you just mentioned, that, you know, if you think about, you know, what to say next, you're not really listening, and then what you say next might not even fit anymore, right?
Yes.
Because
Exactly.
like where the conversation went. On the other hand is like, okay, so if I do that, then, well, I'm gonna lose the conversation, like what I just did, because what is impossible is something that they try to teach us or tell us: multitasking. Your brain is not able to do that
No.
unless you tap into your subconscious, what is busy was like breathing and, you know, pumping your blood and stuff like that. So that's it. Multitasking is not possible. So it's, but people try it all the time and then they fail, and then they're not good at both things or multiple things that they try to do, you
One
know.
of the things that came out in the 80s, sales technique, which absolutely irks the hell out of me, is this practice of when you meet somebody saying their name 3 times. And it's just like, let, oh, Mike, thank you so much for inviting me over here. And I appreciate that, Mike. And so, Mike, how are you? And it's like the idea was that it would show interest in the other person. I just find it annoying.
It's super annoying.
It's
And it's like, the thing is this: if you're a salesperson and you know, on the topic, you want to, you know, want to broaden your horizon when it comes to sales, right? You're on the right path, in my opinion. You know, it's like, okay, so you're interested in actually getting better, right? You picked up a book, and you can tell what kind of books people read, like when you read those books, right?
Mhm.
They try to sell you something, and you can instantly say, okay, that you got that out of that book, right?
Yeah, right.
So, and it's like, okay, so, but it's even, I don't know if like people that don't read books like that don't get it, or if it's not annoying to them, it's just annoying to us, because we know where it comes from, what it is for. uh I cannot tell, but the thing is that, like, there's sales tactics out there where it's like they're really annoying, and they really don't work that well either.
Right.
You know, it's like a lot of people, you know, write a lot of books based on opinion, right? It's like
That's true.
that's, you know, it's
That's
an
true.
opinion, right? It's an opinion. It's not a fact. It's an opinion, but they make it sound like a fact, and it's like it's proven and this and that.
Yeah,
You
practical
know, there's,
experience.
you know, there's a lot of tactics. You know, especially when you go the route of like psychological sales books, right? Persuasion, and, you know, where, yes, social proof. That's right. It's clinically proven. It works, right? They have done studies on it. They people don't people let people die based on social proof or not social proof, right? They have done tests on the in the middle of the road in New York, right, where some people just didn't care when there were more people, and they didn't care either. They felt like they didn't have to help because no one else helped you, right? So it that is kind of proven stuff. But if it's like, oh, if you say the name 3 times, that wasn't clinically proven either. So a lot of books written on opinion, and misleading a lot of people. I mean, they feel it in their pocket, you know.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So
I think one of the things that I really enjoy is is listening to people talk. So it's I've noticed that there'll be I'll talk with people, and they'll walk away thinking they had a wonderful conversation when they didn't. Basically, they were doing all the talking.
right,
But I would occasionally ask a question that just kept feeding
right,
them because I'm doing all the listening
yeah,
and I'm collecting more information.
right.
Uh,
It's very powerful though. So I had this one situation where, wasn't a sales job at all, new job. The guy that I was on tour with, like I was like, driving to a customer where he was supposed to give training to a customer for a technical product, right? That we sold already. So I was like, okay, so I'm gonna do a trick. I read a book before, and the book was saying something like what you just said. Just don't talk. Just make sure that active listening. That they know that you listen, but then don't say anything.
mhm.
Try to not say anything. And I didn't. And that was a 6 hour drive. All right.
Wow.
6 hour drive. That man was driving, um, super knowledgeable, older guy, like close to retirement, like really, really knowledgeable, right? didn't didn't stop talking. You know, I learned so much in those 6 hours. If I would have, I like to talk myself. All right, believe it or not. The thing is that if I would have done like the opposite, or like the normal is like, hey, you know what? I'll lead the conversation, whatever. I wouldn't have learned anything on that trip. But because I deployed this, like I tried it out. Really, that was a test for me because I really barely can shut up. So sat down, just okay, oh, interesting, oh, really, really, right? 6 hours of straight learning.
Wow.
I have to say that it's very powerful. It's very powerful.
That's great. I love
Yeah.
that story.
So a long time ago, though, I was still living in Germany, so it was really. And you're doing it to me right now. No, really, the power of like just listening is just for especially in real estate where you don't want to come across like a pushy
No,
salesperson.
no.
It's like, hey, I'm not in the market to buying or selling right now. Why are you talking to me like that,
Right.
right? So instead, just be like, be of value to the person
Right.
as long as you know them, and then when they're ready, they're ready. You can't push someone. It's like that's such a big decision.
No, when they're ready, and that's something a lot of people don't understand. That's why I say that we don't practice sales. We don't, because I've seen, I've yet to see any real estate agent in my 25 years of practice sell the idea of buying a place. I've seen the buyer jump on it within the first 5 seconds of walking in, but there's no amount of showing the property that'll convince someone to buy it if they're not going to buy it.
Right.
It just doesn't happen.
Especially if there's a couple involved or a family,
Oh my
it's like,
God, yeah.
you're not gonna do that.
No.
It's like you're not gonna force anyone to like sell their home and buy something new for no reason.
Right.
Unless they told you, hey, you know what? If you ever find my dream home and that should look like this, hit me up. That might be different. But even then, the moment has to be right. That it's impossible to
Yeah,
just like force someone.
buyers are really interesting characters because they have a set idea in their mind of what they're looking for, but then that can modify within seconds of walking into a property. It doesn't have any washer dryer. I don't care. I love this place, but I thought you wanted a washer dryer. You
Right.
couldn't live without a
It doesn't
washer
matter
dryer.
anymore.
Doesn't matter
Yeah.
anymore. And that response, that is a gut immediate response. I like to fish. I'm not a very good fisherman if one counts catching fish as indicative of being successful in fishing, but I do love the excitement and tension that comes from waiting for the fish to grab that hook.
Mhm.
And that's what I watch my buyers do as they walk into the property and bam, I've hooked them. Well, I haven't hooked them, they've hooked themselves,
Right.
really.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sold by themselves. That's
Right,
the thing.
exactly.
But it's like, all right, and that's coming back to 80% of buyers or sellers go with the first realtor that crossed, because they're not like, for them it's like, well, you're doing me a service, right? You're basically my secretary now for the next 4, 5, 6 months
Right.
or however, right? It's like you're doing all that, right? Depending on like how the market is and whatever. So it's like, okay, you do that so I can, still live my life without, that's basically what it is, right?
Yeah, but here's and you made me think of a statistic that I think is really telling. According to NAR, the average amount of time that a buyer takes to find a property is 10 weeks.
Hmm.
Average time is
Hmm.
10 weeks. But if that buyer does not use the internet, does not use any of the tools that's available to them, it only takes them 4 weeks. And I think the reason that is because the real estate agent is doing their job. Okay, the really great buyer's agents I know all the product that's out there, and they will literally tell their buyers, "Why are you wasting your time wanting to go look at this property? It doesn't make any sense because I've seen it and it doesn't meet any of your criteria." And they're actually speeding up the whole process for themselves,
Hmm.
which in some ways is sale, but it's also product knowledge,
Right. I
which is
mean,
really
that's
important.
a great service.
It is.
But the problem is like you're a statistics person, especially like in a market like this, right? Isn't it so that like a handful of people make like 90% of the
80, yeah.
transactions?
I actually started looking at three different real estate companies because I thought I'm gonna go sell myself to them as a trainer, and I ran their statistics first. I wanted to see what they're doing, and I was terrified to see this. And there's a principle behind it, and I can't remember the guy's name. He's an Italian guy, but it's that 80% of the business is done by 20% of the people. If I was a designated managing broker in those offices, I'd be afraid to go into work because if a chunk of your producers leave, you're screwed.
Right.
There's no way around it. So the challenge is, how do you as a designated managing broker and a trainer, you've got to incite that remaining 80% of your sales staff to produce.
Right.
Right now, you said something earlier which really kind of tickled me, because my attitude as a managing broker was, what have you done for me lately? Because if you brought in a sale, I'd be, great, that's good, now go get another one, because that's the way it has to work. You have to be hungry. You have to always be
Right.
going out there and generating business, because so much of it falls apart, right? And it takes God, what's the number? It takes an average of 9 to 10 months to get your first deal in the industry, if you're a statistic.
Right.
Some people go
Yep.
faster
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
that. All right, but you can literally starve to death in real estate.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, like, all right. So here's just what this is me. I don't have any numbers backing this up, right? Here's what I saw during my time as a realtor. 80% of the people that were not really like hungry, right?
Hmm.
That I saw, most of them women. I don't want to say older, but like,
But statistically, that's true.
right.
Middle-aged
So
women are
middle-aged
the
women
vast
that
majority
were like,
of
you
the
know what, my
workforce.
husband is going to work. I'm kind of bored. Kids are out of the house. Let's do something, right? Or kids are still living at home, but they're older already, so I can do work on my own time. And that's what it is. They come, they talk a lot in the
Part-time job.
office,
Yes.
right? And then that's what they want to get, like, to know more people. Like, the most time they spend is like with other realtors.
Yeah.
What is not a bad thing necessarily, right? You want to be connected. You want to, you have a deal. I have a buyer. That kind of stuff. But it's just a way for them to get out of the house.
Yeah.
Often, that, like I said, I don't have any numbers to back this up. I don't want to like bash anyone or anything, but I think that's a huge part of like why we have those like huge numbers of like dropouts after a year.
Well, the interesting thing, and without getting any get whacked with being called a sexist or anything like that, statistically speaking, the vast majority of real estate agents are middle-aged women, and and historically, it's always been a great second job for people to have,
Hmm.
for their mad money. That being said, I know an awful lot of amazing agents who are female as well, and they have a tendency. No, they're not necessarily all younger, but they're just so driven, and there's a different way of approaching it than you will with the men, I mean, I wonder if any social studies have been done on uh, industrial psychologists have done any studies on the work patterns of male and female real estate agents. Just kind of curious. Not that I know if it would show up anything. Um, the uh, but the thing that all the top producers have in common is that they are not afraid to go out there and try, and to reach out to people and to constantly be on the look for a new client and moving them along. Um, which I think, I mean, I say this and I probably shouldn't, but it's like I think a lot of real estate agents are lazy. I think they just want it too easy. Um, I had a mentee who got, God bless him. He thought that sitting and answering the phone in the office floor time was the way to make money.
Hmm.
And this was the thing that just absolutely blew my mind. He was a member at the East Bank Club. And when he told me this,
Didn't
I,
utilize it.
and he was like, no, I got on the computer and I looked up the East Bank Club and I went, oh my God, do you know how many social activities go on at the East Bank Club?
Right.
And all these people with incredibly
Like
wealthy,
incomes. Yes.
incredible incomes.
Uh,
I said, why aren't you working at the East Bank Club? He said, oh, because I'd rather just answer the phone and people call in and they say they're interested in property that they've seen online. Right, and he found out that there was a lot. He found out one individual was a real time waster for him, and what happened to this kid was he had to quit and move back to King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, to live in his parents' basement.
oh, great.
Yeah, right. So it's um, I had a student come up to me one time and say, I want to work the $1 million market. Do you have any suggestions for me? And I said, yeah, get a better caliber of friend. I mean, because if you want, and I go to the Young Professional Network breakfast, and they always have speakers come in and talk about how to generate business. And they had two speakers that came in to talk about this upper level, this upper tier of client. They said the same thing. You got to go where the money is. The one guy's playing golf, another one's going to a high-end fitness center. That's what you have to do. You have to
Yeah.
get
Go
out
where
there
the
and
boats
mix.
are. You know.
Go, yeah, right, exactly.
It's just like get yourself a big boat.
Yeah, that's exactly what you do.
Right.
And I think people just expect it to come to them. I mean, that's really what that passivity is where you're sitting around, you're mailing something, and it feels like you're doing
It's
something.
all very passive. I don't have to talk to someone. It's
Yeah,
like, oh, well, nothing works out. Well, it's the universe that is against me. It's like, no, you don't produce enough.
yeah,
Get yourself out of there. It doesn't matter. It doesn't. If you have a problem with personal, if you have a problem with like talking to people, you know, there's a camera. Just
yeah.
talk right into it. Be on YouTube, make videos. What we do here. It's like, does that feel awkward? No. Do you want to talk into the camera by yourself all the time? That feels a little bit awkward.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know.
like I tell students, it's not a good gig if you're into playing World of Warcraft in your basement and that's all you want to do. You got to get out and mix with
Yeah.
people.
Exactly. Like I said, in my opinion, the old timey way of sales is still working. Is like face to face.
Yeah.
That works always. Help people, add some value to their life. Be a friend, even though to a stranger. I don't know. Like it's possible. Be kind to people.
Yeah.
Like
Absolutely.
that's like something that is missing anyways, especially in a big city like this. It's different down south, but like here, people are rougher to each other. Everyone is busy. Everyone has to run. Tons of people. Like you say, sometimes you don't see the forest for the trees, right?
Yeah.
So different thing here in Chicago, but you can make a difference, and that people will remember. Absolutely will remember.
Yes.
Yeah.
They will do that.
All right. So well,
Have we done it?
we have done it. Thank you very
You
much
bet. You
for
gave me one of my best lines ever.
what is that?
Don't piss off the bear.
Yeah, don't poke at the bear, right? I remember that. I remember that. That was cool. You know what? Everyone was laughing. So
Yes, they
we're
were.
we're both comedians.
Exactly. Exactly.
I like that. I like that. It was a great class too.
It
A
was.
lot of the people in there, I'm still connected with a few. Where some of them are still in real estate, some of them aren't, but most of them are uh, took a lot out of that class.
Good.
To like push to the next level. That was like I said, that was that was a good class. I mean, it was freaking cold that January, I think,
Yeah.
but everyone made it there, and it's like I think there was one person that didn't get it. I think the third time in a row or whatever. But everyone else, like I think, passed, and it was a great time.
Good.
Well, thank you very much
Well,
for being on the show.
thank you for letting me do it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime.
I hope
Anytime
it
we're in
was useful.
Chicago, we're gonna be in Chicago way more often in the near future. We're gonna open up probably not this year anymore, but early next year we're gonna open up a little office here too. It's already in the making. You know, we want to expand to the big city also because you know market way bigger here than it is down there.
Sure.
Um, but you know, headquarters will stay down there. So that's the plan,
Cool.
right?
Very good.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.